Hi everyone, it's me, Spring, the fiber enthusiast, and welcome to the channel. Today's tutorial is going to be a pattern tutorial, and it is going to be on this newborn baby cardigan. Buttons are optional, of course. I did it because I don't have a little it's going to go on. This was just something that I wanted to design and make because I had somebody being a new grandma in mind. Congratulations to them. So this is a very simple pattern and easily adjustable for size. We'll go over the measurements here shortly, but if we turn it over, you can see the back of it. And now with this part here, the way that it's done, it's loosely done, so it's not like a real thick, hard bump right on the spine. It's very loose and easy for pressure-wise, because we want to be careful and cautious of putting too much pressure in the wrong places on newborn babies. So we're going to go ahead and take this off and get some measurements and get started making it. Okay, now that I have it off, I am going to go ahead and place the buttons back into their buttonholes, which are made when we do the cardigan itself. All right, so if I was to just lay the measuring tape across, we are at about 7 3/4, roughly, almost, well, just about 8 inches across. And if we do the circumference of the cardigan itself, the body of it, it's right at 16.5 inches. And now from the shoulders down, we're at about 8 inches there. And the length of the arms is 4 inches. And the circumference of the arm is, let's see, about 9 3/4 inches. Let me just double check that, just to be sure. Yeah, 9 3/4 inches. Okay, so now we have the measurements of the cardigan here. And as I said, the buttons are completely optional. This is done in a 4-weight yarn. I just used mainstay, and it wasn't even a complete skein, and I still have this much left over. And I did 4 buttonholes when I made it. Now, when we're working through the pattern, if you are choosing not to put buttons on it, that's perfectly okay. You'll just omit the area where we chain for the buttonhole, and you'll actually just do a single crochet instead. Let's see. I think that's really all we need to go over. Of course, you'll need a pair of scissors, a darning needle to sew in the ends, and a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. And if you are an extremely tight crocheter, you're going to want to bump that up to at least a 6 millimeter crochet hook, especially for the chain. I generally will do my very beginning chain in a larger hook size, a half to a whole hook size larger, specifically to keep it from being too tight after working the rest. So I use a 6 millimeter crochet hook for the chain, and I used a 5.5 for the rest of the cardigan. Now, this is made as one piece. We work up to the armpits, and then we work one side, the other side, and then the center, and then we attach our yarn and work our sleeves. That is the construction overall. So let's go ahead and get our worsted weight yarn, our hook sizes that we need, and our other little items. And again, if you decide to put buttons on it, you'll need buttons. And on this particular design, I have placed 4 buttons. One last measurement. The button size is 3/4 of an inch in height, and it's going to be the same as far as wide because it is round. All right, go ahead and grab your stuff and we will get started. Okay, so I have my 2 hook sizes. I have my 6mm, which I will do the chain, and my 5.5, which I will work the rest of the entire cardigan with. So I'm going to set that down. And for those of you that work foundation rows, this is your opportunity to work a double crochet foundation row. If you are doing a foundation row, you will need a total of 53 double crochets. If you are not doing a double crochet foundation row, we are going to work a chain. Our chain is going to be 55 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on until you have reached 55. Once you have 55, I'll meet back up with you. Okay, so I've come to the end of my chain. I am now going to remove my 6mm hook, completely done with it at this point. And we're going to start with our 5.5mm crochet hook. So now we're going to place a double crochet into the 4th chain from your hook. Your loop on your hook is just that, a loop on your hook. I will be working into the back bumps of my chain. So I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to place a double crochet into that chain. And at this time, into this turning chain, I'm going to place a stitch marker. That signifies this is the last stitch of the row. The first stitch of this row, the last stitch of the next row. Now I'm going to place 1 double crochet in each of the remaining chain stitches. So you can continue on placing 1 double crochet in every single chain. I'm going to meet up with you once I have reached the end. Okay, so once you have reached the end, you should have a total, including that turning chain, of 53 double crochets. So now we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, turn your work, and we're going to back post the next stitch. So we're going to go behind and back post, double crochet. We're going to front post, double crochet the next one. And that is your repeat to the end of the row. Back post, front post. And we're going to continue on all the way to the end of the row. And what that's going to do is give you a little bit of stretch at the bottom and kind of like, you know, the edging at the bottom of a sweater or a jacket. So this is what we're working on now. Once you have reached the end, I'll meet back up with you. Okay, so I've made it all the way down here to my stitch marker down at the end. I am going to place a double crochet into the 3rd chain. So 1, 2, and 3. Want to place a double crochet into that 3rd chain. So that way we're mimicking the other side of it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is chain 1 and turn our work. You're then going to work 1 single crochet into every stitch to the end of the row. So single crochet back into that first stitch and replace your stitch marker if you are using a stitch marker. Then place a single crochet into each of the remaining stitches all the way to the very end, and then we will begin some repeat rows. I'll meet up with you at the end of this row. Okay, so I've reached the end of the single crochet row. Now we're going to set up for the pattern and how to separate it all out. And by doing so, I'm going to use a bunch of stitch markers just so that way I can explain to you how the setup of this pattern is and how we're going to work it. So we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And I'm going to single crochet back into that stitch and single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to place a stitch marker into that stitch. Now, why am I doing that? Because that is this section where the buttons are, and you can see the overlap here. Okay, so now I'm going to place 1 single crochet into each of the next 10 stitches, and then I will place another stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I'm going to place another stitch marker. So this is one side. This is the panel of one side. Now we're going to work across the back. All right, now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I'm going to use a red stitch marker so that way we really can see this part here. Now we're going to chain 5 and skip 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Single crochet, 1 single crochet into the next stitch. And we're going to place a stitch marker into that stitch. Like that. Now we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we're going to place a stitch marker into that stitch. That part from the green stitch marker to the yellow stitch marker is the back of the cardigan. Now we're going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch until we have 3 stitches remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We have 3 stitches remaining we're going to place a stitch marker in this current stitch. And then 1 single crochet in the remaining 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work over. That was row 1 of our repeat rows. We're going to repeat row 1 of our repeat rows 3 more times. In doing so, we're also going to add a buttonhole on the 3rd row of the repeat rows. So the side here that has more stitches. So we have one side that has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stitches, or 14 stitches, I'm sorry. And we have one side that has 13 stitches. So the reason for that is we want just a hair of an overlap where these buttons are. So if I was to take this and set it down like this and fold it over at the green stitch marker here, and then I was to bring this side over, folding it at the yellow stitch marker, we now have an overlap. Here is the one, and now we can overlap like this. So what that's going to do is allow us to actually place buttons and add buttonholes type thing. So the buttons will be on this side, and the buttonholes will be on this side. Okay, so if you would like to mark some way, somehow, the longer side, the one with 14 stitches versus 13 stitches, please do so at this time. We're going to be marking that into that center of the 3 beginning single crochets. It will all make sense once we work through these first few repeating rows. All right, so this is row 2 of our single crochet row, of our repeating rows. We've chained 1, we've turned our work. We're going to single crochet back into that first stitch and 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to single crochet to our chain space. I'm going to remove my excess stitch markers because it is easier for me. That was just simply for your benefit so I could lay it out and show you where things are at. So now I'm going to single crochet all the way to my chain. Once you have reached your chain, we're going to repeat. We're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to jump over that chain 5 and single crochet into the next stitch. And then you're going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way to the end of the row. Again, you do not have to use stitch markers. That was mainly so that way I could show you how to set it up and visually see how things are laid out. As long as you keep the same number when you're doing the buttonholes, you're making them on the same end. You'll be fine if you choose to put buttonholes. If you choose not to put buttonholes, you will just single crochet all the way to the end. All right. Getting down here to these last 3 stitches. Chain 1 and turn your work. Okay, so this is the row that we're going to be placing a buttonhole, and it will be at the end of the row. This is the 3rd row of your repeat. Single crochet back into the same stitch, and then place 1 single crochet in every stitch until you have reached your chain 5. Then you're going to repeat, jumping that chain 5 space. All right, I'm at the chain 5. We're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to jump over that chain 5 and single crochet into the very first stitch. And now you're going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch until you have 2 stitches left. When you have 2 stitches left, I will meet back up with you. Okay, I'm down to the last 2 stitches. I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet into that very last stitch. That is the buttonhole. Now, just to keep it as an obvious indicator that this is the side and where my buttonhole is, I will be placing a stitch marker into that space once I have started my next row. So to start the next row, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and single crochet back into that very first stitch. And single crochet into the chain 1 space. And then you're going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch to your chain 5, at which point you will chain 5, skip over your chain 5, and place 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and all the way to the end of the row. You will place 1 single crochet in every stitch. This is our 4th row of repeats. So we're single crocheting to the chain 5, chaining 5, jumping over to the next stitch, and single crocheting all the way to the end of the row for the 4th row of your repeat. Okay, so I have made it to the end of the 4th row of repeats. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Place a single crochet back into that very same stitch. And we're going to start working over to our chain. This is our last of the repeating rows, and it is also the change that happens in the chain space. So we're just single crocheting all the way down here. Okay, so I've made it to the chain spaces here. We're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. This part is done very loosely so that way we do not create pressure points any more than there should be. So we have a chain 2, and we're going to go under all 4 of those chains. Under all 4, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now what you're going to want to do is create a loop that is large enough that these chains don't bunch up really tight. And single crochet it. So as we can see here, they're together, but they're not squished together really tight. So make sure that when you do that, they are very loose and will lay flat. There is a little tiny bit of a bump here where we go around all of them, but it is not super bad. Just be cautious when you're doing that, that you're leaving that loop for the single crochet large enough that those chains will lay flat. Then chain 1, 2, and skip over to your first stitch after the chain and single crochet. Then place 1 single crochet all the way to the end of the row. Then you're going to repeat rows 1 through 5 of your repeating rows. One more time. Okay, so that is the end of the 5-row repeat. As I stated earlier, I placed a stitch marker in my buttonhole. That will tell me this is the side that my buttonholes need to be on, irregardless of what row I'm on in the repeat. So that way I remember to chain 1 and skip 1 on the 3rd row repeat, and it's on the right side. I hope that that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and work to that point, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have completed my 2nd row of the repeats. I'm now getting ready to chain 1, which I've done, and turn my work and begin the 3rd row. The 3rd row is where we place the buttonhole. And remember I said I placed a stitch marker into the previous buttonhole. That way I will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the buttonhole in this repeat will be at the beginning of the round instead of the end of the round. So I've chained 1. I'm going to turn my work over. I'm going to single crochet back into that first stitch, chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet into the next. That is the only difference. And I'm going to place a stitch marker into that space as well. Now, if you are not using buttons, you will just omit this part of the pattern. Now you will carry on and finish the remaining repeating rows. Once you have repeated this full repeat for the 2nd time, I will meet back up with you and we will talk about what to do next. Okay, so now is where we're going to separate and work one section, then another section, and then the final section. So on the side that actually has the buttons, not the buttonholes, you have 13 stitches. So you're going to single crochet every row 13 stitches across. So you chain 1, turn your work, single crochet back into that stitch, and then single crochet into the next 12 stitches to the stitch marker. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and your very first one was 13. So a total of 13 stitches. Now you'll just chain 1, turn your work, and repeat for 8 more rows. After you've completed those 8 rows, I will meet back up with you. Okay, so now we have completed those 8 rows, and now we're going to do the decreasing section right here that creates the collar on the front side of the cardigan. And how we're going to do that is you're going to repeat the next 2 rows until we are down to 6 stitches. So I've chained 1, and now I'm going to turn my work. Now we're working from the very outside of the cardigan, and we're going to single crochet the next 2 stitches together. So 1 and 2 stitches, and we're going to single crochet them together. And then you're going to simply single crochet in every stitch all the way to the end. We have decreased by 1 stitch. Now when you've reached the end, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to single crochet to the last 2 stitches of this row. So place 1 single crochet back into that first stitch. We'll single crochets until we have 2 stitches left. So you're just going to work all the way down to 2 stitches before the end, and at which time you will single crochet them together. So I have 2 stitches remaining. I'm now going to single crochet 2 together. And then I'm going to repeat those 2 rows until I am down to only 6 stitches remaining. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we need to go ahead and continue decreasing until we are at that point. I'll meet up with you when I've reached that point. Okay, so once you are down to 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're simply going to cut away from our working ball of yarn and tie off here, like that. Okay, so now we're going to skip over 26 stitches. So from the stitch after the stitch marker, which is where our last stitch for the front section is, we're going to count 26 stitches. It should be 10 to your chain 5s and then chain 5. And then you're going to count over 11. Okay, so that is 26 stitches from here to here. Now we're going to work on this side. We are going to start in the stitch right after our stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 stitches. So we're going to grab our working yarn again, place a slip knot on our hook. Insert your hook into the stitch after your stitch marker. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip stitch. Now chain 1 and single crochet back into that stitch. So again, we're going to work over to the other side by placing 1 single crochet in every stitch. This is considered row 1 of our decreasing part. All right, that's row 1. And just like we did for previous buttonholes, we're going to do it on the 3rd row. And we're going to do this 2 more times. So now we need to go to our 2nd row. So chain 1, turn your work, and single crochet back into that same stitch, and work 1 single crochet all the way to the end of this row of 14 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work over, and this will be row 3. Row 3 is where we're going to place another buttonhole. So you're going to work all the way to 2 stitches before the end. So single crochet back into that same stitch and all the way to 2 stitches before the end. Down to my last 2 stitches, here is where I chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet into the last. Chain 1 and turn your work over. Single crochet back into that same stitch, single crochet into the chain 1 space, and then place 1 single crochet all the way to the end of the row into each stitch. Again, I'm going to go ahead and place a stitch marker into this buttonhole. This kind of gives me an idea as to where I'm at in the pattern and how many buttons I have. All right, so now we're going to work the 4th row. Chain 1, turn your work. Let's work the 5th row. Okay, so now we're going to do 2 more rows, and then the 3rd row will be our space for our next button. So chain 1, turn your work, single crochet back into that same stitch. This is now row 6. Chain 1 and turn your work. This is row 7. Single crochet back into the first stitch and all the way to the end, placing 1 single crochet in every stitch. And chain 1, turn your work, and we are now at row 8. Row 8 is where we're going to place our next and last buttonhole. So we're going to single crochet back into that first stitch, chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches of this row. Now chain 1, turn your work, and this is row 9. This is the last row that we will put a stitch all the way across all 14 stitches. When you come to your chain 1 space, you will be placing a single crochet into that chain 1 space and 1 single crochet into the last stitch. Chain 1 and turn your work, and then you're going to repeat those decreasing rows until we are down to 6 stitches. So we decrease on the outside where our buttonholes are. We're going to go into the first stitch, pull up a loop, into the second stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 loops that were on your hook. Now go ahead and work 1 single crochet in all of the remaining stitches. Chain 1, turn your work, and this is the second row of the repeat for decreases. Place 1 single crochet in the first stitch and 1 single crochet into each of the next several stitches until you have reached 2 stitches before the end of the row, at which time you will decrease those last 2 stitches by doing a single crochet 2 together. Okay, I'm down to the last 2 stitches, and I'm going to single crochet those 2 together. Chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to continue those 2 rows until I have 6 stitches remaining. Okay, so once you've made it all the way down to 6 remaining stitches, you're going to chain 1 and cut away from your ball of yarn and bind off. Now we're going to start working over into the center section, the back of the work. And what we're going to do is repeat this section here. So you're going to single crochet to your chain 5, and then skip over to the very first stitch past your previous chains and single crochet all the way to the end. You're going to work that repeat that we were doing. So we have 2 done, and you're going to do it 1, 2, 3 more times. So we're just going to grab our yarn and place a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to pick up in the very first available stitch and slip stitch to that. Again, you can work over the tail of your yarn if you would like. Chain 1 and single crochet back into that same stitch. Now we're going to single crochet over to where the chain stitches are. And we're going to repeat these 5 rows. You're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip over the top to our very next stitch, over the chain space, over to our very first stitch, and single crochet into it. Then you're going to place 1 single crochet all the way over to the last stitch before your panel starts. 11. So you will have 10 single crochets on one side and 11 single crochets on the opposite side. The side where your buttons holes are is the side that you will have 11 stitches. The side where your buttons will go will have 10 stitches. So then you just chain 1, turn your work over, and again, you're going to single crochet over to your chain 5 space. Single crochet into that first stitch, and 1 single crochet in every stitch to the chain 5. And again, we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to jump over the chain 5 space and single crochet into the next stitch. Then you're going to place 1 single crochet in every stitch to the end of the row. You're going to do that repeat until you have 4 chain 5s. On the following row, which will be the 5th row, that is when we do the single crochet around those 4 chains. So again, you're going to go ahead and continue with this pattern until you have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these bows of chains. I'm going to meet back up with you at that point. Okay, so once you have made it all the way through and have a total of 5 of these chain bows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work over. We're going to do the last 2 rows of the back before we seam together the front panels to the back. All right, so we now are going to basically do row 1 of the repeat. So we're going to single crochet into the first stitch and all the way to the chain 5. 1 single crochet in each of those stitches. Then we're going to chain 5 and skip over the chain space and single crochet into the stitch after that group of chains there. So just like we're doing row 1 of the repeat all over again. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and skip over that section and single crochet into the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in every stitch to the end of the row. At which time we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to single crochet 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way across, including into your chain 5 stitches, your chain of 5 stitches. So single crochet into the top of the first stitch, and then place 1 single crochet into every stitch across. When you get to the chain 5, you can, if you so choose, crochet 5 single crochets around the chain 5, or you can single crochet into each of those stitches, each of the chains. So I'm going to crochet into each chain. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one, 5, and then 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches after that. Okay, so this is it for part 1. For part 2, we're going to be seaming it together and creating the sleeves. So we will get this all seamed together in part 2 and do the sleeves, and you will be done. Add the buttons, all that good stuff. All right, everyone. Be blessed, be a blessing, and I'll see you in the next part.